Yeah. All right, YouTube. Hey, welcome to the show tonight. We got the 7 weeks out Arnold amateur vlog with co-host Justin Harris, John's coach. John was not able to join us tonight, feeling a little under the weather, but we still wanted to stick up with the cadence here and get you an update. And obviously, Justin as coach will be able to kind of walk through some more details. So before we do that, be sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. As well, again, we'll have every weekly updates. Keep you posted if there's any sidetrack illnesses, injuries, or major changes in the plans. You definitely want to follow along. So good stuff. Welcome, Mr. Harris. Good to see you.
What's up?
All right, let's get this bad boy going. So we got Mr. John Rivas's updates here. So just for kind of the audience out there, just walk through some of this. So we'll go through just kind of overview, some poses, current diet, next steps with this workout and such.
I don't want to cut you off, but you can see this is going to be an interesting case because you can see John on stage there last year, and just keep that in mind what he looks like, because he has an interesting body and he's another big super heavyweight with all the difficulties that big super heavyweights have in getting them ready for a show.
Good deal. Let's kind of jump in, and I'll come on, roll for me. All right. So this was kind of roughly, John, I know when he did his check-in, this was roughly where he was. I forgot to change the weeks out to 7, my mistake. But nonetheless, then I know the last day or two he's been kind of feeling kind of ill. But
you kind of not 10s anymore. I can guarantee that.
No. This was a couple days before. So I mean, what do you usually see when someone's about 7 weeks out and you start really pushing the diet? What do you kind of start to hear from your clients or from?
Well, like usual should not be. That's the problem. We can't use usually right now because this is a very, very interesting prep because they pulled the Arnold amateur. So John's a big boy, super heavyweight, and I've talked about that before. You'll hear one thing you'll hear from a lot of coaches, and I tend to work with almost all big bodybuilders, super heavies, and partly because I feel like I'm really good at adding size on people, and so most of my guys eventually become a super heavy. But if you notice, you'll see like the Olympia and guys coming off and guys don't coming off. And then you'll hear coaches talk about, I can't believe these guys missed their peak so much. I had 3 people in the middleweights at the, Vermont State this weekend, and all 3 of them were on point. And that's the thing, peaking 160, 170 pound person is entirely different than peaking a 270 pound person. And all those things are dramatically amplified because you take a 170 pound guy, and then he's got the same bone structure and the same organ structure as the 270 pound guy. So the difference is all muscle mass, all stuff that changes rapidly. Yeah, there you go. So John's rapidly dropping. I was 6. I talked to him today. There's no way.
Dang it. I screwed up the scale. Why do I keep saying I screwed it up again? It needs to say 0 to 10 for all the viewers out there.
0.6 maybe.
Yeah. All the viewers, you guys can light me up in the comments. I made a typo.
But anyways, we had the double issue of, we started prep 16 weeks out and we were going to use all 16 weeks, and then they pulled the Arnold amateur, and then we get what, like 10, 9 weeks out, and it's back on again. And so John wants to do it, and we want him to do it because we started prep, but we are not 9 weeks out because we've been off the diet since 14 weeks out or whatever. So we basically got to pull a rabbit out of the hat in all aspects, because it's not, if he was, getting a middleweight or maybe even a light heavyweight ready, it'd be like, all right, look, we're just going to starve your cardio to death and we'll fill you back out. You can't fill 270 pounds out from that starvation cardio to death in a couple of days. At least do it and remain dry. So we're walking like a real tightrope right now, bringing him down hard. You can see he's down 20 pounds in not that long of a time. He's holding fullness really well, too well, too good, I think, right now. That's my concern, is he's still very big and round. And there's some clips, on Instagram, like a little teaser trailer video we did. And you can see he's still got the delts and traps, and he's very round. He's added a lot of size since last year, but we're like Bugs Bunny and the Roadrunner on an Acme rocket, and we need to land on the bullseye, and that's where we're at. It's coming together, but it's going to be interesting.
Good deal. Well, yeah, this is just kind of a comparison. I know the lighting, we go easy on the the big fella because the diet's kicking in, so the lighting or the stances might be a little different. I mean, but
Yeah,
you know,
scaling's off and everything. But you can see there's progress. He's leaner.
yeah,
And the other thing that's tricky with John, and the reason I wanted to emphasize that back shot on the first slide, is because this is what John looked like body fat wise at 7 weeks out last year also. Now the whole prep with John last year, I was, because as a coach, you kind of go, okay, when do I pull the plug? When do I send him the email and say, hey, look, dude, I know you put your heart and soul into this, and as a former competitor, I know how hard this is, but you're paying me to win. You're not paying me to get on stage, and we're not going to win. And
right,
so last year, I had about an 8-week stretch where I was like debating that, typing that out, and you could see where we pulled it together. We got him ready. He's one of these guys that has, and I call him cliff weeks, where you're like you're running along like Thelma and Louise, you're driving along nothing, and then all of a sudden you hit the cliff and changes. There's a female competitor I have, pro figure, Rachel Killam, who she's awesome. She's been a great client, but that girl gives me a heart attack every single prep because she's a cliff weeker also, where we're week after week after week where I'm like, oh my God, well, how, like, mulling over the diet, what can we change, what's going on? And then all of a sudden she sends those cliff week pictures, and it's like, okay, did 6 weeks pass? Did
right.
I have amnesia? And so John's another of those cliff week guys. We're going to get one probably around 4, maybe 3 weeks out, way later than you want it to be. But this is what happened in both preps with him previously, where it's like this, where you feel like we need a miracle for it to come together, and then we hit that cliff, and it all comes together. And you saw on stage he was in pretty good shape. That was for a state show, which he won hands down. It was a dominating win.
Right.
But that's where we're at, and so he's making progress. His shape is better. He looks more like a bodybuilder. You can see his quad sweeps improving. The scale's off on these, so it's hard to tell. He's got those kind of abs that like a shorter torso ab, which is he really needs to nail the front shots properly, the ab and thigh, and then more specifically his front double bi, which he has improved the way he hits that pose immensely.
I think we got that right here.
Yeah, the scaling's rough too. But he's pulled that together, changed his leg position, his hips, what he's doing with his lats and his arms, because he's got that power lifter back. I mean, incredibly thick, heavily muscled back. And so getting that to show from the front, because he's got like a wide, flat rib cage. And so he used to hit this pose with more of a vacuum. And I thought it was one of his weaker poses. And I'm really interested to see how this comes out at the end, because I think, at least at this point, it's going to be one of his better poses. Again, if we can get him ready. And so the Arnold's going to be interesting, because he's not the only one going through this. I have a feeling the lower weight classes are going to be more heavily stacked with competitors, because as a super heavy, when you get told the show's back on 9 weeks out, I wouldn't have done it. If we were around, knowing what I would have to do to get in shape in 9 weeks, I would have. And John was the coach, I would have said, John, sorry, I don't got it in me. John's got it in him. He's got that dog in him. So he's still working to pull it off. But as you can see by him not being on today as planned, that dog's whimpering.
Right.
He's hurting right now.
Yeah, a lot of encouraging texts to get him on the show coming up. So
yeah, the other thing is, because like there's things you could do, like we could find a doctor to get him some thyroid medication, T3 or whatever, but that's not going to work. You can't do that on a guy with that amount of muscle mass above what he would walk around with, just as an average Joe, because it's just going to melt right off him. So he's got to do it the good way, the old-fashioned way, just starving and cardio, basically.
Yeah, no, I don't know. We'll get to that in a couple slides, like what you have him on for his cardio and stuff. But this one is again, the color is a little off. So I mean, we'll continue to work on the photos. I'll spend a little more time on it next time, because he tanned. I think he hit the tanner before this one, and then this is the new one. So it's hard to tell any.
Yeah, he's and there's 3 days difference there. So that's the other thing that's tough is, guys that big, the amount of, you're looking for 2-3 pounds of fat loss a week. And for him, we're looking for 3 pounds of fat loss per week right now, which is about a 1,500 calorie per day deficit. And now 3 pounds over a week, a guy that big can gain or lose 10 pounds of water in a day, you know?
Right.
So we're talking, you know, it takes a month of fat loss to guarantee the scale will change more than it will on any given day due to water retention. And that's really one of the bigger things with the big guys is that fluctuation. You know, you have a bikini competitor that weighs 108 pounds, you know, her weight loss is going to be pretty linear with the fat loss, because, you know, fat loss is linear. You're in a calorie deficit, you drop that body fat, and so he's going to be losing 3 pounds of fat per week, which, I mean, he has to be in shape in time. However, the scale isn't going to be going down 3 pounds like that. It's going to be bouncing all around 10 pounds in either direction. You know, he'll be 263 one day, then 256 the next, then 260, then 262, then 252 or something, you know, and it's all over. And those are the tricky things, you know, for me as a coach to track and as a competitor to keep your, you know, your head focused and not panic. Because go ahead.
No, I was gonna ask, do you have them do like their weight once a week? I know you go off of photos, or do you have them do the average weight of the week, or just don't really pay much attention to the weight?
I don't pay much attention. I let them weigh themselves. You know, my check-in asks for weight, but you don't get weighed on stage. You know, I mean, it's a good secondary metric, because sometimes the pictures are like, you're like, oh shit, I need something else. And then you know, then the scale like is a nice secondary metric. Like if the pics show like, oh man, dude, you didn't this, you know, you look watery here, you know, and then I see, oh, you're up 6 pounds. Okay, thank God. Okay, you know, it's that kind of thing, you know. But if you're up 6 pounds, that doesn't mean anything to me unless the pictures also show it, you know.
Right.
So it's pictures first, and then if the pictures show what I need to see, I might not even remember what the scale showed, or not, and my eyes might not even go to it. If the pictures give me something funky, I'll look, does the scale corroborate with that? And if it does, and it's like, okay, we know what's going on. The other thing, you know, because we're dropping carbs hard, and this is the thing people, you know, people don't really standardize their micronutrient intake, like their sodium intake, which, you know, I try to do, but with carb cycling, higher carbs, you know, carbs tend to be sweeter. They don't need as much salt on them. They don't need as much seasoning. You know, you can eat fruit with no seasoning. You know, how much salt do you put in your oatmeal? None, you know?
Right.
And so your high carb days, you have this weird case where your insulin levels are higher because you're eating so many carbs, and insulins are like a mild diuretic, really. Insulin increases the glomerular filtration rate. I can't remember the exact mechanism. It's almost like a stimulant from the kidneys. They increase fluid output a little bit, but it is something. So it's a mild diuretic. The problem though is that insulin also increases sodium reabsorption, and it's a secondary mechanism because it needs that sodium to form glycogen, because, you know, glycogen is water or glucose and water, and then sodium is kind of the carrier. So your body recognizes that. So when insulin levels increase, at the distal tubule of the kidneys, there'll be an increase in sodium reabsorption, where sodium would normally go out, you know, get put into urine. It'll filter back through and get reabsorbed back through at the distal tubule of the kidney back into the system. So you got this double whammy of, on his high carb days, he's getting mildly diuresed, and then his body's reabsorbing sodium. And then we go back to the next day, will be like a low carb day. And what do low carb foods need? Salt. Low carb foods taste like shit if you don't have sodium, you know? So everyone adds more sodium on those days. Body's already holding more sodium. It's already a little diuresed from the higher carb day before. And so we'll get these weird weight fluctuations where you'll actually like weigh a little less at the end of a high carb day, and then weigh a lot more and be watery at the end of a low carb day. And it's because of things like that, you know? So we got that going on this constricted time scale also.
Yeah. And have you noticed clients, like they have to, you know, drain, like urinating more like towards the tail end of a high day or the next day after a high day?
Yeah. You on a high day for sure.
Yeah. Because of the kidneys that you're just described.
Like, late in the day. Yeah, for sure. Because you got to think what's all acting. So, I'm eating more carbs, so right away my filtration rate of my kidney is higher, so I'm peeing a little bit more. It's not a dramatic more, but it is a little bit more. But I'm also eating all this rice and oatmeal and stuff. That's a lot of you're going to be thirsty. You know, you need to combine, because you need to. It's not even a choice, because to form glycogen, you have 1 part glucose. Glycogen is 1 part glucose and 4 to 4.5 parts water. So it's more than 4 times as much water than it is glucose. So you don't really have a choice in the matter. I mean, you do, but you'll be fighting the urge to drink, because as soon as your blood sugar starts climbing, your body sends the signals that you're thirsty because it needs that water. And then your kidneys reabsorb the sodium to combine with it to form the glycogen. So it's all this process that happens without even thinking. You drink more. By this point, we're pretty set in. We're at like 6 liters a day minimum of water, but his natural thirst might even be higher than that. So he's going to drink more, and you're peeing out more. So you combine both that. By the end of the high day, you're probably not sleeping very good that night, basically.
Yep. Yep. No, I've seen that, like the off-season plan that you put together a while back for me. I've made some tweaks since then, but a little bit. But yeah, I noticed that myself, even not even being as dieted. Yeah, kind of same thing. Like I said, this was just the old 3-day difference slide,
Yeah,
but this is
and you can see he's had a high day.
Yep.
And so were those picks today? I haven't.
This one was.
Yeah, I still got to check my email, but yeah. So you can see he's probably half a day into a high day, and so you can see how much he's filled out. You can see. So here's, I guess you want to see as a coach, what are you looking for, and how do coaches know? Because he probably looks leaner in the darker picture, the older one. But if you actually look closely, like let's look at his delt, tricep delt, his brachioradialis, on his non-tattooed side, it's a little easier to see. You can see the delt tricep trian, right there, and then the delt and tricep is a little sharper. So you can see he is leaner. And if you look at his, so he's a little leaner, even though he's fuller. So he's actually quite a bit leaner because he's fuller and crisper. So there's actually more water in the body in the newer pictures, but the lines are crisper. So he's actually, he's actually more leaner than it looks. But if you look at his rectus femoris and his quads, in the middle of his quad, you can see there's a little sharper definition there. And you also see his quads are fuller also. Yeah. So it's a weird thing. It's hard to gauge the body fat, because you look, like if you do the thumbnail picture, like if you just scan quickly, you can see he's wider, fuller, bigger in the newer picture. And it almost looks like he must be less lean. But then when you really analyze those things, you say, okay, these lines are crisper. Partly the crisper because he's fuller and the muscles pushing against the skin. But that's a different look. That's going to be the fact that his shoulder looks harder in the newer picture. That's the fullness and the muscle pushing against the skin, thinning the skin out. You blow a balloon up, the skin of the balloon gets thinner. That's one aspect, but the definition, that's actually from the lower body fat. And that's kind of like, for people listening, that's a tricky thing when you're filling out filling out, like the difference between filling out and spilling over, and why you look better when you're leaner. When you're fuller, and you can see in the lighter picture, the newer one, he looks harder, and that's from being fuller. But in addition to that, he's also leaner, and that's the crisper lines between the muscles.
Yeah, and usually on check-ins or report outs, do you have them, when they're sending their pictures, tell you like what the day before was? Or what the day of was?
And there's a whole thing, and then we try to do it the same. It matters more for them because they're paranoid that I won't know what I'm looking for.
You can see.
Yeah, I mean, people don't realize, like someone watching this, they've seen 10 comparisons like this in their life. I've seen 10 a day for 20 some years.
Right.
Yeah, it's like, it's like when like speaking the English language, or it's or a better example would be like you watch the gymnastics at the Olympics, like I can't judge those,
right?
But like the judges know. Or it'd be like you look at the top 5 at the Olympia compared to your mom. Your mom's like, they all look the same,
right?
You can tell the difference. If we're like, for these things, this is all I do. I know what you ate, whether you told me, whether you're telling me or not. I know what happened, and I know, I know if you cheated. I know whether you had the high day yesterday or today, even whether or not I know, I can tell by the picture. I mean, and you can see, he's had more carbs. You can see his delts are fuller, his biceps are fuller, his legs are fuller. And then it doesn't matter whether he tells me it's a high day or not. I can see that. And then you can also see the body fat through that, because you have to understand the difference between being leaner or looking harder. He looks harder, and that's unrelated to the fact that he's lower body fat. He looks harder because the muscles are fuller and the skin stretched tighter. He's leaner because of those other things you can see, because you don't fill out in the space between the muscles. That part is actually from him dropping body fat.
Yeah. Let's see. Yeah. Okay. So this is actually, I know it's probably gonna be harder for the viewers to see out there, but this is the low day. I know we were talking about this beforehand. He's got 2 meals of 25 grams of carbs. The rest are only 10. And again, he's a big fella. So
And the 10 grams is really kind of misleading. It's because they're really zero carb meals. That he's just allowed up to about 10 grams from green leafy vegetable sources. In the olden days, I would just call that a no carb meal, protein and fat meal. But then, to standardize my diets, my diet, you see these macros, I'm pointing to the screen like anyone can see what I'm pointing at. You have the cursor, but these macros also link to a meal plan. And that meal plan needs to be able to include vegetables. And so that's why the 10 grams, they're really more zero, up to about 10 grams of total carbs, which from like a broccoli source is going to be largely insoluble fiber. And for the people listening, we don't extract calories from insoluble fiber. You'll hear people always say we don't extract calories from fiber. That's not necessarily true. From soluble fiber, we can extract about two calories per gram, where an average carbohydrate is about 4 calories per gram. Insoluble fiber, we pretty much extract 0. And so of those 10 grams, we're talking, 2 or 3 grams of actual carbohydrates, if that. But I don't want them to, I want them to be allowed to have some green leafy vegetables to provide bulk to the diet.
Yeah, gosh, man, those no carb meals. You get a couple of those in a row and you're already depleted. Like it's like, brutal. The stomach acid is just out of control.
Yeah, and then and oh man, you got the GERD and gas, reflux, everything hurts. I hate that feeling. I liked the idea of hard work. I've always liked that, and the idea of my own like intense work creating progress.
Yep.
But the pain of it's just a terrible pain. I don't know how some people seem to tolerate it so well. I feel like, you ever wonder, like, do people feel pain the same as me? And like, you think everyone feels the same. The one thing I feel like I have to feel this differently than other people is that low carb feeling. Because some people seem to just tolerate life, where I feel like everything hurts. It's like, I swear to God, my stomach's eating itself right now. It's looking for calories by digesting its own tissue.
Well, you remember back in the day when in early 2000s, when the diet, we didn't rotate the type body part we were training with the diet. So it'd be a low day, 2 low days in a row, 3 lows in a row, and then you hit legs on the third low day. And it was just like, what the heck? Just smelling like ammonia.
Ketone, ammonia. Yeah. Did you, is that the mop bucket or well, I remember because Kukla wouldn't believe in the high days, and so I used to like you ever see that TikTok? Let me smell your breath. The guy drinking, you drink my Mountain Dew. I used to make me smell his breath because I could smell if he was in ketosis or not. Because like, you fucker, eat the goddamn carbs on the high day. I'm not doing it as a break. I'm doing it for a reason. I know you can suffer. I'm not asking. It's more than that.
That's funny. Yeah, the medium day. I mean, man, those for a big fella. Yeah, this is making like I'm gonna send you my start of my off-season plan. So this is rough. So I'm like, I was hoping I could get more food, but if he's this big, I'm not getting this much food.
Yeah. He doesn't have much protein either. A guy like his size, I would probably rather have him at 60 grams. But we just don't. There's only so many calories, and protein aren't free calories. So that's an easy, 40 calories. Really more. It's more about 50 calories per meal with the lean meats we choose that I can cut out. So over 6 meals, it's 300 calories a day. That's a half a pound of fat a week. We're getting right there out of it, or a pound of fat. I'm sorry. Wait, no, half a pound. Sorry. Yeah, we're gonna pull the intra probably this week. That post workout meal is going to go to 50 grams, and then we're going to start pulling the fat. Probably. I mean, he's gonna have to go like 6 weeks, like with no added. That's no added fat. That's the for the people watching. I'm not limiting this 7 grams of fat per meal. He's got 50 grams of protein from almost always a meat-based protein source. Now that's going to be chicken breast or turkey or On low days, 96.4 ground beef, or on any day like the skinny beef, 98.2. So there is fat in that. So it's total fats, closer to like 15 grams per meal, most of those meals, but 7 of it's going to come from an additional fat source, like a nut or a guacamole, like an avocado type thing. But it doesn't matter too much because pretty soon those are going to be gone anyways. Yeah. And it's just going to be what's the fat in the meat.
I remember you saying that, like, oh, it's going to get rough. I'm like, no, I think I'll be okay. It was only 7 grams, but oh yeah, I felt it.
Yeah. Well, and because like there's rabbit starvation. There's you can actually starve to death with unlimited food supply. They call it rabbit starvation, not rabid, but you probably feel pretty rabid by then. You're frothing at the mouth. But like, rabbit meat is so lean, and this would happen to the early settlers. They would, the rabbits were everywhere, and like environments like that. And so you get a 22, or whatever, whatever. I mean, they had the gun technology was pretty stable to what it is now as far as rifles. But you have a 22, almost unlimited ammo. You can make your own gunpowder, and there's rabbits environment everywhere. So you're killing this lean rabbit meat that's 2% body fat, because they're rabbits they're more amped up than I am right now, and so they got no body fat. And if that's all you're eating and you're not getting any carbohydrate sources, you could actually starve to death even with an essentially unlimited food supply, because you couldn't eat enough of the extra lean meat over the long term to sustain life. So that's basically what we're going to be doing for the next 6 weeks is a rabbit starvation.
Fun. And then these 10 grams down here, the meals 2, 3, and 4, these are not around training on a medium day. So these, just for the viewers out there, we have a pre-workout meal of 35 grams, an intra workout using field rations there, and then post workouts like a higher carb 75 grams. Then it goes 25. And then these 10s, are these veggies or these 10
vegetable only meals? Anytime there's a meal less than about 20 or 25, it says like if elsewhere in the diet plan, the plan is like a 7-tab spreadsheet.
Yeah.
At some point it explains, like, if you ever see less than about 20 grams of carbs, I'm going to assume that that's just from vegetables. And really it's just always 10. In some cases, like if we had a full 16 weeks with them and I wanted a vegetable meal, I might put 15, which is basically like, you can eat as much broccoli as you want in that meal. But yeah, those 10 are really 0 grams. And so to explain, like the workout meal, so he eats the meals in numerical order, except for wherever he has the workout. Now, this allows him to put the workout that's most convenient for him. So if he wants to get right up in the morning, eat meal 1, and then train, he would have pre-workout, then he'd start training. If he wants to train later in the day, he would get up and have meal 1, from the regular meals. And then maybe he decides he's going to work out after that. Then, then he would have his pre-workout meal. So you can move that three meal chunk pre, intra, post to whatever time of day you train. And then you just eat the other meals around it. Yeah. That's just for anyone who might be signing up for me at some point, because if you see that, it's a little confusing. The spreadsheet explains it, but
yeah. All right. Well, I think we got, this was just a high day. I mean, just kind of talk through, like, this is the refeed, right? Basically, we're dropping protein, 150 between the workouts, doubling up on the field rations.
Yep. And then half of the carbs in each meal can be from a sugary source. And a sugary source doesn't mean it has to be actually sugar. It just means like not the typical food list of oatmeal or rice, not really high volume. It could be a bagel. I mean, typically ideally it's going to be like a fruit or a pure fruit juice. That's just what people seem to respond to best as far as like inflammatory type things. Technically you could eat Skittles. Skittles, a small hand-sized bag of Skittles is 50 grams of carbs, no grams of fat. But as far as the macronutrients are concerned, it's going to be identical. Sucralose is sucralose. It's going to have high fructose corn syrup. Fructose is fructose, whether it's fructose from corn syrup, arguably, or fructose that we would find in fruit. But it really, really, really seems that people who stick to fruit and non-processed sugars do better as far as how they feel. And I'm curious, because today's John's high day, and he's not on because he's not on the podcast because he doesn't feel well. I'm curious if he took the processed sugar out, because people do seem to, you feel inflamed. It's a real interesting thing.
Yeah.
Because everyone kind of knows that, but what is in processed food? You look at the ingredients list, sucralose is sucralose, or I mean, sucrose is sucrose. It shouldn't matter. it's it's glucose is glucose. It's dextro rotary glucose. It's right-handed, like you look at the chirality under a microscope, it's right-handed glucose. That's all dextrose is. Fructose should have the same, that should be, sugar is C6H12O6, the same chemical structure no matter what, whether it's produced in a lab or whether it's grown in a field. However, it really does seem that people do better as far as how their body feels, like from whatever inflammatory markers there might be when they don't do the processed stuff.
Yeah. Well, good stuff. Yeah. I mean, he was over 1,000 in his off season, so it's still a little,
yeah. And typically I typically like the high day carbs to be higher in prep than in the off season, because you only get one day to fill out, because we're making the concession that this is a day that we're not burning fat, we're going to fill out, but we don't have really room for, I mean, the 890, he's not filling back out. He'll start getting just more and more depleted, and the high days will bring him back from the edge, but they're not going to fill him out after about another week.
Right. All right. Well, yeah, we had just kind of some cardio edits on the bottom here. So he's got 30 minutes fasted or post workout 4 times a week, 45 minutes, anytime six days per week.
Yeah. So basically, like I give some room on the time, because people, I want them to be able to make it work if something pops up. It's really assumed to be 45 minutes fasted, and then 30 minutes either before bed or after the workout. That's what I'm assuming he's doing, but I'm just giving him any time of day, because it really doesn't matter. And I'll explain why. And it's a cool science lesson, I guess. You people do fasted cardio because you're going to burn more fat, right? And that's true, because if you do cardio right after a meal, your blood sugar is going to be elevated. But no one ever does the math on it. You have 6 liters of blood in your body, basically, 5.5 liters on average, but 6 liters roughly. And so if your blood sugar is 100, 100 nanograms per deciliter, you do the conversions, you get about at 6 liters, that would be about 6 grams of sugar in the blood, right? If your blood sugar is 100. So that's it, 6 grams of sugar if your blood sugar is at 100. So you say, I'll do cardio fasted when my blood sugar is only 70. It's not going to be 70. It's more going to be like 81 or 82 or whatever. But let's say it is on the very, very low end, of the normal range, and you're at 70. That's 4.8 grams of sugar in the blood.
1.2 difference.
Yeah. So you're 5 calories. I mean, over time, over 16 weeks, it does, every little bit you want to count, but it doesn't count.
Yeah, it's interesting. I remember you walked through that before. It's interesting, when people actually walk through the numbers and the science of it. Yeah, you see any other is the HIIT cardio coming back or going in at all?
No, I know, and I pulled it. That was a concession. I would have preferred to keep 20-minute HIIT in longer, because we basically jumped right in from off-season diet to this diet. You got to remember, it says 8 weeks out there. We started at 9. So it's like, if people are looking like he's not ready at it, he's not where he needs to be at 8 weeks out. He's only 10 days into the diet. So I wanted to do HIIT, but because carbs had to go so low right out of the gate, we did a couple HIIT sessions, and he didn't feel like he was giving it his calorie count wasn't where it needed to be. So we had to make a concession. Ideally, I prefer those 30-minute lists to be 20-minute HIIT at a higher total calorie expenditure than 30 minutes of list, but we weren't getting that. So, you take what you got, and 20 minutes of less cardio at a higher intensity, or less calories at a higher intensity. I could be stubborn and, say, I want HIIT, but if he's not burning the calories, it's not going to work for us. So.
Yeah. With HIIT, are you you ever ask them to look at, monitor any of the variables, like as far as speed or heart rate or anything of that?
No, because, and I set I do HIIT a little differently, because, bodybuilders aren't in shape to do a real HIIT, So mine's more, I'm looking to double the amount of calories we're expending, or at least, 50% more. And so mine is like 1 minute HIIT, 1 minute list, basically back and forth. And so, the HIIT is intense. It's like self-deciding in that it's intense enough that it's very difficult to do in a minute, But in that next minute of just normal lifts, you're just barely able to recover enough to do another minute of hit. And so basically what we're doing is on 20 minutes, 10 of those minutes are at a much higher intensity than the lifts would be. So typically when, you know, you should be able to get like 200, someone his size should be able to get 200 calories every 10 minutes of hit with easy, you know. They're not going to get, they're 10 minutes of lifts, you're going to get 100 calories if you're lucky. So ideally we can get a little more than double, which means 20 minutes of hit is actually like 40 minutes of lifts calorie wise. And you get EPOC, you know, the elevated post-exercise oxygen consumption, which is another one of those blood sugar type things. It matters, but it's, you're talking on the order of like maybe 40 calories over a day, which matters over 16 weeks, but we don't have 16 weeks, and 40 calories, you know, 200 calories a week, it basically was what that would amount to for the EPOC is not, you know, not that big of a difference. You know, we're talking less than, you know, half a pound over the course of the 9 weeks. So you kind of, these are things you have to think and take concessions on. You know, I would prefer to do the hit but we weren't getting the calorie count we needed. And so I'd rather drop to 30 minutes of lifts and get the calorie count we needed.
No, I remember back a little when with mine, you were like, well, we can drop the hit, but we have to double the list. I was like, the hell with that, man. I'll just grind. I'm like, I'll just kill myself. It's fine. Because I didn't want to drop it. I was like, it came to me with between work and a family and all that. It was just like, I didn't have the time to do it,
yeah,
you know?
Yeah. That's the same. And, you know, I understand not wanting to do hit because hit's terrible, but also when you're running a business, you got kids, you got a wife, there's only 24 hours in a day. Everyone has the same 24 hours. I'm already only sleeping 4. So, you know what I mean? Like that's where you're at this point. Where John's got, you know, he's got the girl, but he doesn't have the kids, and he's got the freedom in his, you know, because he like trains basically as his profession.
Right. Well, good stuff. Thanks for walking us through that, and we'll look forward to, you know, week 6 sometime next week. So for all the viewers out there, definitely put your questions in the comment section below. As always, be sure to subscribe, like, and turn on notifications again, as we'll have, you know, not only guests coming on, but we'll keep the vlog going, and we'll be layering in other athletes too over the next couple of weeks. I know we have some plans for some Q&As we're going to be publishing soon, so definitely keep an eye out for that, and much more. So thanks again for joining us, walking through that, Mr. Harris. Always a pleasure.
Thank you.
And for all the viewers out there, we'll see you.